Welcome to the Process Breakdown Podcast, where we talk about streamlining and scaling operations of your company, getting rid of bottlenecks, and giving your employees all the information they need to be successful at their jobs. Now, let's get started with the show.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, host of the Process Breakdown Podcast, where we talk about streamlining and scaling operations of your company, getting rid of bottlenecks, and giving your staff everything they need to be successful at their job. Before I introduce today's guest, Mary Pittman, who I'm really excited to talk to, this episode is brought to you by SweetProcess. And if you've had team members ask you the same questions over and over again, and maybe it's the 10th time you spent explaining it, probably time to put some kind of system in place, Mary, right? What do you think? Yeah. So here's a solution. SweetProcess is a software that makes it drop dead easy to train and onboard new staff and save time with existing staff. And not only, I was talking to the founder, Owen, not only did I discover universities, banks, hospitals, and software companies use it, but first responder government agencies use them in life and death situations to run their operations. So use SweetProcess to document all the repetitive tasks that eat up your precious time, so you can focus on growing your team and empowering them to do their best work. There's a free trial, 14-day trial with no credit card. Go to sweetprocess.com, sweet like candy, SWEET, process.com. And I'm excited for today's guest. We have Mary Pittman. She's the process improvement leader at IMS ExpertServices. Mary, if anyone is qualified to talk about streamlining things, it is the process improvement leader. So I'm really excited to chat. Since 1992, IMS has they've serviced the expert element of high stakes litigation. And you probably have so many details to keep track of with that. So they've placed experts on all types of corporate litigation, arbitration, and much more. And Mary, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So just start off talking about the company. What does the company do?
Yeah, so you got it pretty good. But we're a consultative expert services firm trusted by the top attorneys. So IMS ExpertServices, we support the world's most influential firms through rigorous research, strategic alignment, and managed services to position clients for success on complex litigation and important matters. And we also have consulting services. So we have a proven 5-step process, including our mental mining and jury consulting methodologies, where we work with clients to explore and test strategy issues, discover critical insights, and design and present powerful trial graphics. And we have winning courtroom presentations that are designed to help our clients maximize the impact on the decision makers in the case, including the judges, jurors, and government regulators.
It sounds like an intense environment to work.
It is. Yeah.
So the clients you serve it sounds like you serve a couple different types of clients.
Yeah, so we really serve, we work with mainly the top AmLaw 100, so the top 100 firms across the country. We do have international clients, but we really serve our expert witness as two. So it's kind of two sides of the coin there. So our expert witnesses, we manage the engagement for them. So if any sort of dispute arises, we do their contracts for them, their accounting for them. So we help them kind of manage the engagement throughout the life of the case.
So when people come to you, Mary, what are the biggest problems or challenges they're facing?
You mean in terms of our internal process?
No, I mean them coming to you wanting your services. Like, what are some of the big pain points that you solve?
So the pain points for them are really finding the go-to expert witnesses specifically for the area. So they might come to us and say, we need a guy who worked in this space and who had hands-on experience in 1995, right? But they might also add a list of things. So it might also say, and we need him to have this specific PhD, and he also needs to have expert witness experience. So we help them find the needle in the haystack and then bring them to them and kind of marriage that relationship between the expert witness and the attorney. And then on top of that, the other pain points are just helping them with the strategy of their case, the overall, what's going to get the win. So we help position them for the win by assisting them with graphics. We can come in and do analysis of what does that type of jury feel like on that certain particular topic in that area, and those types of things.
I think a new tagline should be, "We find the needle in the haystack for you." Because it's like, we want someone who's a PhD, they're left-handed, they have a size 9 shoe. It's like,
right.
I'm sure it gets super detailed. So there's a lot to manage. How did you discover SweetProcess?
So probably like many of the other people you've spoken to, it started out with a simple Google search. It started out with us saying, I actually had our our COO come to us and say, "Hey, Mary, everyone's having a really difficult time working through this system and no one knows how to use it effectively. I want you to create the SOP for it." Well, while I'm willing to take that on from the COO, what I knew what I would be up against was, how am I going to, this is a new system that we built, basically a middleware system. So there's going to be constant changes, right, as far as the user experience. So I was looking for something that was going to allow me and my team to keep up with version history. So it's one thing to have a Word document or a PDF SOP, but something that's more dynamic, more fluid, can use conditional logic, can keep up with lots of versioning. That's what I needed. So I started just typing in, process software, those types of things. And I vetted several companies, and I ended up going with SweetProcess because, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I knew that I could drop it in the hands of any IMS employee, and they would, one, be able to intuitively figure out how to use the program, and any manager would know how to build content in the system. And that was not the case with the other competitors.
So it was robust enough that it had all the functions you wanted, but simple enough that anyone can go in and kind of just intuitively use it.
Absolutely.
What I'm curious, what were issues you had before then, or pain points just around documenting procedures in general or training staff?
It's the age-old, where does everything live, and why do we have so many homes for different documents? And then why do I have to be in so many different systems to do something? So why do I have to be in a process chart type of system to create the process chart, then to go and to actually take the process map and then do the written portion of it, when I can just do it in one, like I can in SweetProcess, and just general access to the information. And then the other thing is just editing, right? So kind of user types, so different statuses for people to be able to edit it. We actually recently acquired a company called The Focal Point, and they're the part of our company that handles consulting services, and they have a wiki. And although the wiki was great, what it allowed anybody to basically edit it at any time. And so there wasn't really a way to go back and see that, or there wasn't a permission level that allowed them to have a user propose edits, because everyone, the manager doesn't always have the bird's eye view on any sort of process. They might put it out there to start, but a ground, baseline employee might say, that's actually not how it is. Let me give you a little insight. So we always want people to be able to provide feedback, but we don't necessarily want it to be published immediately. And with SweetProcess, based on the type of user that they are, they can contribute to the content, but it doesn't mean it goes into effect until it goes through a certain workflow.
There's different levels, so they may not be able to hit publish and someone else has to approve it before hitting publish, but they can still contribute it at that level. Yeah, it's interesting. And the other things, are there any other types of features you were looking for? You mentioned the version history, and kind of the user the status. What else were you looking for?
So the task feature in SweetProcess, so it allows you to do two different things. One, I can create something. Let's say I have a new employee come in and I want them to watch a series of videos. And after they watch the videos, I want them to be able to contribute back to me saying that, hey, here's my feedback, right? Or here's my top 3 takeaways. So I can assign that task to a new employee and say, here, watch this video and provide me your top 3 takeaways. And that'll immediately come into me once they've completed the task. The other thing that you can do is you can take a process that is something that you do day in and day out, but it's complex. So you want to kind of work through it like a checklist. So I could hit start on one of my processes that are like that. For example, a new employee hire, right, where I need to get the job code for that new employee. If I hit start and I walk through that in a checklist format, I can use the conditional formatting to get to a decision too. Let's say I get to a decision, I can click yes or no, and depending on that variable, I can skip parts of the process that are unnecessary. So I don't have to walk through all 19 steps if I only really needed 6. So the task feature allows you to, one, do new employee
That's
either
cool.
onboarding or hiring, continuing education, but then also in a checklist format.
Yeah, because once you do it a few times, you don't need to necessarily go through every single step. You may be able to kind of jump around.
Yep.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, I like to hear your thought process through that because, some people, Mary, believe it or not, don't have any systems, and now you bring it to another level, making sure there's feedback, like a feedback loop there. Not only is there a system to go here, do it, but you've created a feedback loop inside of that system. So it's like a check, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I'm always curious to know what common questions did you have in the beginning, or was there anything you were skeptical about while you're looking into it?
No, I think the only thing was you can, obviously with any business, you want to make sure that, proprietary information that we're putting into the system is secure. And we want to make sure, that at some point, we know that every system starts out with some more basic features, but you always want to make sure that you go with a company that's going to consistently, kind of strive for
Like
that next level. Yeah, the next level of excellence. And Owen and his team, they really do that. So I provide feedback to Owen and his team. And there's actually one particular incident where I was like, hey, Owen, when I get this email, when I assign this task, it's a little bit confusing. It looks like there's 2 areas that you can really click. Here's what I'd love to see. And his team took that feedback, and actually within a few days, they were like, we thought that was really good. So we went ahead and implemented that so that we can have a better user experience. So a company that's kind of growing with you and allows you as the user to provide feedback and takes that into consideration is a big deal. And then also just making sure that, like I said, the information that we're putting in is protected and it really is only for our use.
Yeah. That's huge when a company actually takes feedback and implements it, which is amazing for a company, then makes it easier for them. What other use cases, Mary, do you find with SweetProcess? What else have you used it for?
So I like to think about that the user is the one that limits the system. So although the button at the top of the user bar in the process says procedure, I don't necessarily just let it limit that to something that's step by step, because there's actually a lot of features that you can do. So you can use the feature of like a multiple choice option by kind of using that as a interactive or dynamic table of contents. So one of the examples we use it for is our consulting services team. When they move and travel around, wherever they get somewhere, they typically purchase some vendor boards to set up to do in the room with the clients. And so what they can do is they can use that kind of interactive table of contents to just pick on what state they're in to get the information of our vendor in that state. So they click it, and then it scrolls them down the page and takes them right to the information that they're looking for, right? Instead of having to read through the entire list of states, what you can use is you can use the logic in the procedure step to use that as organizing information. So that's one way we do it. Yeah. Obviously, step-by-step process. We do use the policy side as well. So the policy side is really great because you can have your employee handbook, and when you have a procedure such as how to submit PTO time, what you can do is say, before you submit your request for PTO, make sure that you have read and understand the PTO policy, and you can link the procedure to the policy.
That's really cool. How do you feel it's changed your typical day, like before and then now?
Well, I spend a lot less time hunting in some shared drives for information. As a process improvement leader, I'm in charge of, the process among many different business units or departments. And so when I'm helping them find either the root cause of something or just maintaining a process, it's a lot easier to find everything in SweetProcess. So the search feature is really robust. So it looks for things in the title and it checks all the content of the procedure. So that's a lot easier for me to find something and locate it. Or if someone has a question, let's say we have an issue and we have a couple teams in disagreement, I can go back to the source document, which is now SweetProcess, and we can share that information out again and remind them of where we are. So for me, it really helps me keep teams more accountable because now there's a real place for them to go and look for the actual process that was signed off on.
I may have to add that in my intro. Helps keep teams more accountable. I like that. What's the next big goal you want to achieve in the company, Mary?
So we have not rolled this out completely company-wide. So I mentioned earlier that we had an acquisition. So what I'm doing is we're still in an integration process. So
that seems like a lot of steps to integrate.
Yeah, it is. But this is helping us, though. SweetProcess is helping us get all on the same page. So for me, we're still in kind of baseline mode. So we're basically taking everything that existed or simple daily routine task and putting it into the system. The next step is to take those obscure things, right? So things where it's like, there's one particular group that uses building blocks in Microsoft Word. And if you've never heard of that, you would have to Google it to, one, figure out what it is, and then two, figure out how to use it or set it up on your computer. Well, we need to put that process into SweetProcess so that when we have a new hire, it's right there. We can say, go ahead and set your building blocks up on such and such document. So it's kind of moving to more of the obscure things that you don't think of. And also things for us that are outside of daily tasks, but are things that what we're trying to do is we're trying to use SweetProcess to get rid of the tribal knowledge. So for instance, there are several spreadsheets or different feeds or migration sets that I myself maintenance. So if I'm on PTO or something happens, someone might not know how to do that. So I have to set it up so that someone can step right into my position and be able to do that in my absence. And SweetProcess is going to allow us to do that.
Very cool. What's the next step someone listening should take to streamline operations? How do you manage and efficiently streamline things? And I want to hear how your mind works.
If you don't have a system, I would definitely use the trial of this product because that's what sold it for me, right? So there's a 14-day trial. So I use this. I went ahead and put in a lot of stuff, and I got in front of our executive committee to show them the possibility of where we could be. The next step really is to audit where you are. So you can buy a great system, but if you don't audit and know where you are right now, and the good thing with this process, SweetProcess, that I like is that when I went and first did the audit of where are we at, what do we actually have documented now, right? So that I can just kind of put it into the system. I was surprised that we just didn't have a lot of things documented. And so the cool thing is the ease of use of this system. What normally would take me probably several hours in a Word doc or a PDF or a PowerPoint or something like that to create, I can do it probably a fraction of the time. And then you can also, sometimes this is what I told our executive committee. I said, at the end of the day, we don't know how large the company is going to grow. And this might be a solution that you think we don't need in the future. I can tell you right now, and I created enough business case for them too. And how I sold them is, let us get organized. And at the end of the day, if something happens and we feel like it's not a fit for us, there's a way to get your information. So to me, there's no risk in using SweetProcess because unlike other companies, you can actually go and export your information right now if you wanted to. And it's actually in a really nice format, probably better than what I would create. So I'd say first is to do your research. Second, kind of audit where you are and what you need. And then just start doing it. You can only kind of set yourself up and organize so much before you just kind of get into it. And then the other thing is just maintenancing. So SweetProcess has a built-in maintenance feature It allows you to enable a review period on a process. So something that might have several different links or a video, you might want to maintenance that every 3 months and make sure that the content is still valid.
Because it changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Things change, links change. Something that is kind of flat and doesn't have a lot of other external links or those types of things. Maybe you can maintenance that every 6 months.
Talk about the audit process. I think that's important, kind of see where you're at and to see what you actually need to do. What do you look at when you're going through your audit process?
So how I started is I like to meet with each manager and then their top employee. So whoever their top performer is, meet with them both in a room, get a whiteboard out and say, we're going to map the process of what you do from beginning to end, right? Your contribution to our complete workflow. And so once you do that, you can kind of identify those high points of what that employee needs to know, right? So what kind of tasks they need to be doing each day. And then once you identify, let's say I started with the top 5 because I thought it was outrageous to do everything at the same time. So 1, I mapped the process and made sure that the process map was accurate. 2, I went in and asked the manager to identify if you had an employee that came in tomorrow and they needed to be trained on the top 5 things your employees need to know in order to be successful, what would it be? And you start documenting those top 5. And then once you get those top 5 and everybody in the group agrees on those top 5 things that are documented, then you move to the next top 5. What are the next things? And you kind of just do those in incremental levels until you get out to where you're like, I think we have everything we need.
Very cool. Mary, anything that we missed that we should talk about with streamlining or documenting?
I don't think so. We covered a lot.
Okay. We did cover a lot. So First of all, I want to thank you. Everyone check out SweetProcess.com, SWEET, and happy streamlining.
Thanks for listening to the Process Breakdown Podcast. Before you go, quick question. Do you want a tool that makes it easy to document processes, procedures, and/or policies for your company so that your employees have all the information they need to be successful at their job? If yes, sign up for a free 14-day trial of SweetProcess. No credit card is required to sign up. Go to SweetProcess.com, sweet like candy, and process like process.com. Go now to SweetProcess.com and sign up for your risk-free 14-day trial.